At 29, Jason finally got the job title he had been chasing for years, senior consultant. It sounded powerful. It looked impressive on LinkedIn. His parents were proud, his friends congratulated him,
That's
and for the
incredible.
first time, he felt like he had made it into a higher level of life. But 3 months later, sitting in a luxury apartment in downtown Boston, looking at his bank account, something didn't add up. Because despite earning more than ever, he somehow felt tighter on money than before. The rent was higher now, not because he needed it, but because it matched his level. The clothes changed too. Better brands, sharper look, more polished. Work dinners, networking events, weekend outings in places he never used to go. Even his Uber rides replaced public transport without him thinking twice. None of it felt like a mistake. It felt like progress. But progress came with a cost he didn't see coming. This is what I call the prestige tax. It's not something you're billed for. It doesn't show up as a single charge, but it quietly takes money from you every single day simply because of the identity you're trying to maintain. Jason didn't notice it happening because from the outside, everything looked right. Higher salary, better lifestyle, stronger social circle. But internally, his financial position wasn't improving the way he expected. And that's where most people get trapped. Because we're taught that higher income equals more wealth. But in reality, higher income often brings higher expectations. And those expectations reshape your spending automatically. Jason didn't decide to spend more. He adapted. That's the psychological part most people miss. When your environment changes, your behavior follows. You start comparing yourself to people at your level, what they wear, where they live, how they spend. And slowly, without realizing it, your baseline shifts. What used to feel expensive now feels normal. What used to be a treat becomes routine. And that's how your income grows, but your wealth doesn't. Jason looked at his monthly breakdown for the first time seriously. The numbers weren't shocking individually. Rent, food, transport, social life, everything looked reasonable on its own, but together they consumed almost everything he earned. Saving felt slower. Investing felt like something he would get serious about later. And that's the trap, because the prestige tax doesn't make you feel irresponsible. It makes you feel successful. You're not wasting money. You're living at your level. But the problem is, your level keeps adjusting upward faster than your wealth. Jason started questioning something deeper that night. Not his job, not his income, but his lifestyle. Because for the first time, he realized that his financial growth wasn't being limited by how much he earned. It was being limited by how much his identity cost him. And that's uncomfortable to admit, because it means the very thing you worked hard to achieve, your status, your title, your position, might be quietly working against you. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like your income increased but your financial progress didn't match it, this is exactly what's happening. If you want to understand how this plays out and how to actually break out of it, make sure you like, subscribe, and join Andrew Finance. Because in the next part, we're going deeper into how the prestige tax shows up in real life and why most people never even realize they're paying it.
Jason didn't wake up the next day and suddenly change everything. That's not how this works. The shift started with awareness. Once he saw the pattern, he couldn't unsee it. Every decision he made throughout the day started to feel a little more intentional, or at least a little more questionable. Not in a paranoid way, but in a curious way. Because now he was asking something he had never asked before. Am I doing this because I need it, or because it fits the image I've built? And that question started revealing things fast. The first place it showed up was housing. His apartment wasn't just a place to live anymore, it was part of his identity. Close to downtown, modern, expensive, the kind of place that matched his title. But when he looked at the numbers, it was eating a huge portion of his income. Not because he couldn't afford it, but because he chose to match his lifestyle to his status instead of his long-term goals. And this is one of the biggest forms of the prestige tax. You don't upgrade your living situation based on necessity, you upgrade it based on perception. Then came the second layer, appearance. Jason started noticing how much he was spending just to maintain a certain look. Better clothes, better grooming, better everything. And again, none of it felt wasteful. It felt required. Because in his environment, how you present yourself becomes part of how you're judged. And slowly, maintaining that image becomes a recurring cost, not a one-time purchase, but a continuous cycle. The third pattern was social spending. This one hit deeper because it didn't feel optional. Work dinners, networking events, weekend plans with colleagues, these weren't just social activities, they were tied to his career. Saying no too often felt like stepping out of the circle, so he kept saying yes. Expensive restaurants, drinks, experiences that added up quickly. And because everyone around him was doing the same, it felt normal. That's the real trap. When everyone around you is spending at a certain level, it stops feeling like a choice. It becomes the standard. Jason also noticed something subtle but powerful. His definition of normal had changed. Things he used to question, he now accepted without thinking. A $20 meal felt cheap. A $200 night out felt average. And this is how the prestige tax grows. Not through big jumps, but through gradual shifts in perception. But the most dangerous part wasn't the spending itself. It was the delay it created. Jason kept telling himself he would focus on saving and investing more later, when his income increased again, when things settled, when he felt more comfortable. But later kept moving further away, because every time his income increased, his lifestyle adjusted with it. And that's how people get stuck at higher levels. They earn more, spend more, and stay in the same position, just at a different scale. Jason realized that his problem wasn't lack of discipline, it was lack of boundaries. He never defined what was enough, so his lifestyle kept expanding to fill whatever he earned. And without boundaries, income doesn't build wealth, it just upgrades your expenses. He didn't start cutting everything out. That would have been unrealistic. Instead, he started separating what actually mattered from what was just image. He kept some things that genuinely added value to his life, but he became more selective. Not every dinner, not every upgrade, not every expense needed to be justified by his title. And that small shift created something he didn't expect: space. Space in his finances, space in his decisions, space to think long-term again. Because once you reduce the pressure of maintaining an image, your money starts working differently. It stops being a tool for validation and starts becoming a tool for control. If you're listening to this and starting to recognize parts of your own life, that feeling that your lifestyle has quietly expanded without you fully noticing, then this is where things start to change. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join Andrew Finance, because in the final part, we're going to break down how breaking free from the prestige tax can completely shift your financial future, and why most people never escape it, even when they earn more than enough.
Jason didn't make a dramatic change overnight, and that's exactly why it worked. Instead of trying to reject his lifestyle completely, he started rebuilding it with intention. And the first real shift wasn't in his bank account, it was in his mindset. He stopped asking, "Can I afford this?" and started asking, "Is this moving me forward?" That one question changed how every decision felt. Because the truth is, Jason could afford most of the things he was spending on. That was never the issue. The issue was that affordability doesn't equal alignment. Just because something fits your income doesn't mean it fits your future. And once he understood that, the prestige tax started losing its power over him. He began making small adjustments that didn't look impressive from the outside, but had a huge impact internally. He didn't move out of his apartment immediately, but he stopped upgrading further. He became more selective with social events, showing up where it mattered and skipping what didn't. He still dressed well, but he stopped chasing constant upgrades just to maintain an image. and slowly his lifestyle stopped expanding automatically. At the same time, something else started happening. The money that used to disappear quietly began to accumulate, not in a dramatic way at first, but consistently. And for the first time since getting that promotion, he felt like his income was actually creating progress instead of just supporting a lifestyle. He started investing more regularly, building savings with intention, and more importantly, he started seeing the connection between his daily decisions and his long-term outcome. Because before, those two things were disconnected. He had goals, but his behavior wasn't supporting them. Now, even small changes were aligned with something bigger. There was also a psychological shift that most people don't talk about. Jason stopped needing external validation the same way, because a lot of his previous spending wasn't about the product itself, it was about what it represented: status, success, belonging. But once he became aware of that, it lost some of its hold on him. He didn't feel the same pressure to prove anything through his lifestyle, and that's when the real freedom started. Not financial freedom in the big sense yet, but mental freedom. The ability to make decisions based on logic instead of perception. The ability to say no without feeling like he was falling behind. The ability to define his own version of success instead of inheriting it from his environment. Jason also realized something that changed how he viewed money completely. Wealth isn't built at your highest income moments. It's built in the gap between what you earn and what you keep. And the prestige tax exists to shrink that gap without you noticing. The higher you go, the more subtle it becomes, because at lower levels, overspending looks obvious. At higher levels, it looks like lifestyle. And that's why so many people earning six figures still feel stuck, not because they don't earn enough, but because their environment silently raises the cost of normal. Looking back, Jason understood that his job title wasn't the problem. The problem was how he responded to it. He treated it like a signal to upgrade everything around him instead of a tool to build something long-term. And once he changed that perspective, everything else followed. He didn't stop growing in his career. He didn't isolate himself from his environment. He just stopped letting his identity dictate his financial behavior. And that balance is what most people struggle to find. Because the world will always push you to spend more as you earn more. It will reward you socially for looking successful, not necessarily for being financially stable. And if you don't question that, you end up playing a game where you win externally, but lose internally. So if you're watching this and you feel like your income has increased, but your financial progress hasn't matched it, understand this. It's not always about earning more. Sometimes it's about protecting what you already earn from the expectations that come with it. The prestige tax is real, but it's not permanent. Once you see it, you can control it, and once you control it, your money starts working for you instead of your image.
If this video opened your eyes, make sure you subscribe, because what you learn today can save your future tomorrow.